I left my husband who died of cancer and now my kids hate. We weren't miserable. We were just done. Quietly, uneventfully, like a balloon deflating in a locked room. You don't hear it at first. Then you come back later and it's flat on the ground, dead. I was with my husband, let's call him Jake, for 23 years. Married for 13. We split 4 years ago, officially. But in reality, we were over long before that. There wasn't cheating or abuse. Just that kind of bone-deep emotional drought where you're sitting next to someone and feel lonelier than if you were by yourself. We didn't hate each other. We just coexisted. Same dinner table, different planets. We stopped sharing things. Stopped dreaming together. We were partners in logistics, not love. At some point, I realized we hadn't kissed in over a year. I told myself we were keeping it together for the kids, 14 and 17 at the time, but honestly, I think we were keeping it together out of inertia. So one day, I said it. I think we should separate. He nodded. Like he'd been waiting for someone to say it first. We told the kids together. It wasn't a dramatic scene. No tears, just a "we'll both still be here for you" speech and awkward hugs. I got primary custody, but Jake wasn't far. We tried co-parenting as best we could. The kids were confused but they adjusted, at least I thought they did. A few months later, I met someone. Total surprise. I wasn't looking. He was kind, funny, attentive, everything I'd forgotten I wanted. It felt like waking up after years of sleepwalking. Jake never said a word about it. No passive-aggressive texts. No jealousy. Just silence. We'd become very good at silence. Then, a year after our split, Jake got sick. But we didn't know. None of us did. Not me. Not the kids. Not even his siblings. He never told anyone. Not one goddamn soul. When I found out, it was already terminal. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He had months left, maybe less. I found out from a mutual friend. Someone he hadn't been able to completely ghost. And by then, it was too late. When I found out Jake was dying, I drove to his house and knocked for 20 minutes straight. Nothing. His car was in the driveway, lights were off, blinds shut. I left him a note. No response. I called. Texted. Emailed. Nothing. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about being sick. He didn't want anyone around. At first, I was pissed. Furious, actually. How dare he shut me and the kids out during something like this? We were divorced, yeah, but we still had history. We built a family together. Didn't that mean anything? But I kept trying. I brought the kids by a few times. He wouldn't come to the door. My son once yelled from the front yard, begging him to just wave from the window. Nothing. I thought maybe it was bitterness. Or pride. Or shame. Turns out, it was fear. A mutual friend slipped me a journal after the funeral. Said Jake had left it behind. I didn't know what to expect, angry letters? Some final message to the kids? No. It was pages and pages of his private hell. The cancer was one part of it, but what really broke him down was this old monster he'd fought before, agoraphobia. Apparently, it had come back, hard, when he got sick. He was terrified of being seen wasting away. He wrote things like, "I don't want them to remember me like this," and, "The shame is physical, I can feel it crawling on my skin when I imagine them looking at me." That's why he shut the door. Not because he hated us. Because he was scared. By the time hospice stepped in, he was barely conscious. He died without the kids getting to say goodbye. Without me there, holding his hand. Without anyone. And now, my kids hate me. Like, truly hate me. They say I abandoned him. That I left him to rot and die alone. That I didn't fight hard enough. That I moved on while their dad was dying in silence. They're not wrong. They tell me I took the easy road. That I found someone new and pieced out on the hard parts. And maybe I did. Maybe I missed the warning signs. Maybe deep down, I knew something was wrong and didn't want to look too close. My son won't even call me Mom anymore. My daughter only texts when it's absolutely necessary. Holidays are brutal. Every family dinner is an emotional minefield. My boyfriend, who I love, feels like a wedge between me and the kids. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just stayed. Faked the love. Pretended until the end. So at least the kids had a complete picture when it mattered. But I didn't. I left. And now I live with that. I didn't read Jake's journal all at once. The day I got it, I flipped a few pages and couldn't handle it. I shoved it in my closet behind a pile of sweaters like it was some haunted object. But my son? He devoured every word. Said it was the only real thing he had left of his dad. He carried it around like a Bible. At first, I thought maybe it would give him closure. Understanding. But instead, it lit something in him, something angry. And I can't even say he was wrong for that. A few weeks after the funeral, he finally snapped at me. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and he slid the journal across to me like it was evidence. He said, "Do you know what he wrote on December 3rd? I said no. He opened the book, and his voice cracked as he read. "She was my best friend once. I miss her more than I'll ever say. But I think she left me the day I stopped pretending to be okay." Then my son looked up and said, "He didn't hate you. He missed you. Even while he was dying. And you left him anyway." And that absolutely broke me. Because I had spent so long telling myself we both checked out. That we were both over it. But what if that wasn't true? What if I left, and he stayed? Just quietly hoping I'd turn around and see him again? What if I mistook depression for detachment? I keep replaying the last year we were together, how he'd come home and just sit in the dark, how he stopped eating dinner with us, how he barely talked but never asked for help. And I'd chalked it up to stress. To disinterest. I didn't ask what was wrong. I just assumed it wasn't my problem anymore. I've never hated myself more than in that moment at the table with my son. I tried to explain. That I didn't know. That I truly thought Jake was done with me. That I wasn't trying to run, I was trying to survive. But that's the thing about grief mixed with guilt, you don't get to defend yourself. You just take the punches. My son now says I betrayed both of them, him and his dad. That I broke the family when I left, and then pretended to mourn when it was convenient. That I rewrote the story to make myself feel better. And maybe I did. I cry in the shower a lot now. I wait until the water's loud enough that no one hears. I don't want pity. I don't want forgiveness. But I do want to understand where exactly it all went so wrong. My daughter used to be a mama's girl. We'd stay up late watching trash TV, gossiping about school drama, sneaking midnight ice cream when Jake was asleep. I used to be her safe space. Her go-to. Now? She barely looks at me. She doesn't yell like her brother. She doesn't throw the journal at me or demand explanations. Her silence hurts worse. It's cold. Surgical. Like she's already carved me out of her life and is just waiting for it to finish bleeding. The only time she really reacted was when she saw my boyfriend in the kitchen one morning. She walked in, froze, and looked at him like he was a stranger who just pissed on her dad's grave. Then she turned to me and said, "Is that why you weren't there for Dad? Because you were playing house with him?" I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't have an answer. But because anything I said would have sounded defensive or pathetic. What could I say? Yes, I was falling in love again. Yes, I was focused on someone new. Yes, I didn't know Jake was dying, but maybe, just maybe, I didn't want to look too close either. My boyfriend, bless him, tried to step back. He offered to leave the house that week. Said he didn't want to get in the way of healing. But it was too late. The damage was done. His presence had already relit a fuse in the kids that I didn't even realize was still burning. The truth is, they don't hate him. They hate what he represents, that I moved on while their father was suffering alone. Even though Jake and I were over long before my boyfriend came into the picture, that doesn't matter to them. What they see is that their dad withered in a dark house while I was laughing in restaurants, building something new. To them, I betrayed the narrative. I'm the villain in their grief story. I want to scream sometimes. You don't know what it was like. I was dying in that marriage, too. I was surviving the only way I knew how. But again, when it comes to grief, logic doesn't matter. Fairness doesn't matter. All that matters is this: he died. I wasn't there. And someone else was in the kitchen making pancakes. I still keep a picture of Jake in my drawer. Not out in the open, just tucked away. I stare at it some nights when the house is quiet. It's the only time I let myself miss him. Not the man he became at the end. But the boy who used to make me laugh until my stomach hurt. The guy who held my hand in the hospital when I gave birth. The man I shared decades with before we became ghosts to each other. I don't know who I am anymore. Not really. I'm not a wife. I'm not the mom they run to. I'm just the one who left. The one who wasn't there. It happened on a Tuesday night. Ordinary as hell. We were supposed to have dinner, just me and my son. My daughter was staying at a friend's. My boyfriend was out of town. It was supposed to be just us. Maybe a chance to, I don't know, not fix things, but at least chip away at the silence. I made his favorite, spaghetti with that awful jarred Alfredo sauce he used to beg for when he was 10. I thought maybe it'd bring some softness back. Nostalgia. Something. He sat down, barely touched the food. Just kept glancing at me like he was trying to hold something in. And then, like a fuse finally blew, he snapped. You know what pisses me off the most, he said, shoving his plate away. It's not even that you left. People split up. Whatever. It's that you kept pretending like nothing was wrong. Like we were some normal ******ing family while Dad was dying right in front of us. I froze. You didn't even ask, Mom. Not once. Not when he started losing weight. Not when he stopped showing up to my games. You just packed your bags, got a new boyfriend, and pieced out like it wasn't your business anymore. My throat burned. I whispered, I didn't know. He slammed his hand on the table. You didn't want to know. You chose not to know. Because it was easier. You got to move on. He got to rot in that house, alone. And he pointed to himself, his voice cracking, we got to watch it all fall apart and pretend it was fine because you needed to be happy. I couldn't hold it in. The tears, the guilt, everything I'd buried under, but we were happier apart, and I thought he wanted space, just cracked wide open. I was drowning too, I told him. I was so empty for so long. I didn't know how to stay without disappearing completely. I didn't know he was sick, I swear. But I know I should have seen it. I should have seen something. He didn't cry. He just stared at me with those tired, angry eyes that no teenager should have. He looked so much like Jake in that moment it nearly crushed me. Then he said, quiet and bitter. He asked for you. In hospice. Did you know that? I shook my head. He didn't say much, but the nurse told me. He asked where you were. One time. Just once. And then never again. And that? That broke something in me I don't think I'll ever get back. I told him I was sorry. Really, truly sorry. That I would carry it every day for the rest of my life. That I didn't expect forgiveness, I just hoped one day they'd let me show them that I still love them, broken and messy as I am. He didn't say anything. He just stood up and left. The door didn't slam. It closed gently. Which somehow hurt even worse. I sat there at the kitchen table, cold pasta in front of me, and realized I couldn't fix this with a conversation. Or an apology. Or 1,000 of them. Sometimes, you don't get a second chance to show up. It was raining the night my daughter knocked on my bedroom door. She hadn't spoken more than a sentence to me in months. Not unless it was a curt response or a one-word text. She didn't even say, good night, anymore. So when I heard the knock, soft and unsure, I honestly thought I imagined it. Then I heard her voice. Can I sleep in here? She hadn't done that since she was a little girl and her goldfish died. Back then, she curled up beside me like a kitten, eyes swollen from crying, whispering questions about death I wasn't equipped to answer. This time, she didn't cry. She didn't say a word. Just climbed into the bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling. I didn't push. I didn't ask. I just let her be there. A few minutes later, she whispered, he used to talk to me when I couldn't sleep. Even after you left. I nodded, throat tight. He'd sit on my bed and hum that stupid Fleetwood Mac song. The one he played 1,000,000 times on road trips. Landslide, I whispered. She nodded. Then, after a long pause, she said, I hate you for leaving. But I hate that I still love you more. And that was the cruelest kind of mercy. Because that sentence? That's how grief works. That's how anger works. You don't get to choose when the hate burns brighter than the love or the love refuses to die under all the hurt. They live in the same house. Fight for the same space. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I didn't. I just whispered, I love you too. I never stopped. She didn't respond. Just rolled over and pulled the blanket higher. But she stayed. That night, I didn't sleep. I just watched her, wondering how many more years it would take before I earned back a piece of her trust. Wondering if I ever could. She didn't stay long. By morning, she was gone, back in her room. But she left her hoodie on my chair. And I swear it felt like a flag. A silent, shaking truce. I folded it neatly and placed it on the bed. I didn't smile. But I didn't cry either. For the first time in months, I felt like the door wasn't locked. Just closed. And maybe one day, it'd open all the way again. It's been 3 years since Jake died. The house is quieter now. Not from grief. Just time. Pain that used to scream now mostly hums in the background. It still sneaks up on me, though, like when I see an old picture of him on my son's Instagram or hear Fleetwood Mac in the grocery store. My daughter talks to me again. Not every day. Not like before. But sometimes she'll send me a meme or ask if I want to grab a coffee. She calls me Mom again, softly, like she's trying it on to see if it still fits. My son? That's more complicated. He moved out last year. He's in college now. Smart as hell, just like his dad. We don't talk much. Texts, sometimes. Holidays are stiff. We both try, but there's a permanent edge to our conversations. Like we're afraid of what still lives under the surface. He never gave the journal back. Sometimes I wonder if he'll ever forgive me. Maybe he won't. Maybe forgiveness isn't the point anymore. Maybe just continuing is enough. My boyfriend. Well, he's still around. But not in the same way. I asked him for space after everything. Told him I needed to rebuild something with my kids, and I couldn't do that if it looked like I was building a new life over the ashes of the old one. He understood. Which is how I knew he was a good man. He still checks in. We still talk. But I'm not rushing. Some damage takes time to walk away from. And some of it, you just carry. Here's what I've learned. You can love someone and still fail them. You can think you're doing the right thing and still hurt people beyond repair. You can leave to save yourself and not realize until it's too late that someone else was drowning, too. If I could go back, I'd do things differently. I wouldn't stay in a loveless marriage. That part, I stand by. But I'd stay curious. I'd ask more questions. I'd knock on that door harder. I'd notice the shaking hands, the hollow cheeks, the way Jake pulled away not because he stopped caring, but because he didn't want us to see him fall apart. I would have reminded him that love doesn't disappear when the body starts to. But I didn't do that. And I live with it. I'm not writing this to be forgiven. I'm writing it because I know there are people out there who've left someone they loved, and now live in the shadow of that choice. You're not evil. But you are responsible. And sometimes, that's the heaviest thing to carry. My kids still hurt. But we're here. Together, sometimes. Apart, sometimes. And maybe one day, when they're older, they'll understand I didn't leave Jake. I left the version of me that couldn't feel anymore. And maybe, just maybe, they'll see that I stayed for them, even when I didn't know how.